My name is Mujib Mashal, and I'm a reporter based out of Kabul, Afghanistan. I worked for Al Jazeera English in Doha for a year, and for the past 7 or 8 months I've been back in Kabul doing freelance work for international outlets. I had a grant from the Pulitzer Center to look at transboundary water issues in Afghanistan. 4 out of the 5 river basins in Afghanistan flows out of the country to the neighboring countries, and about 70% of the Afghan water goes out without being used inside the country. And I wanted to look at how the tensions with the neighbors, particularly with Iran and Pakistan, is influencing or impacting investment in the water sector inside the country. Over the past decade, with the tremendous international presence in Afghanistan with US and NATO troops, there's been a lot of investment, a lot of money flowing into the country. But what's remarkable is that only 5% of that development money has gone into the water sector. And that's a huge surprise because Afghanistan is an agricultural country. And if they wanted Afghanistan to stand on its feet, developing the agricultural economy and what's needed for the agricultural economy, which is the water resources, should have been a priority, but it clearly wasn't. So it intrigued me. I wanted to see why, and I came to the conclusion that it is the tensions with the neighbors, particularly with Iran and Pakistan over water, that's making investment from donors very difficult. No international organization, whether it be the World Bank, whether it be the IMF, whether it be any major NGOs, they really don't want to get involved in the tensions with the neighbors. So the water issue is very complex, and it took me about 2 months to wrap my head around it. There isn't enough accurate data on Afghanistan's water resources. There is this belief that Afghanistan has sufficient water resources, but that's not true. Over the next 3 decades, the water per capita is supposed to reduce by 50%. So I wanted to look at why the water is not being managed, why the infrastructure is not being developed. And because there's so many statistics and and it's a very politically charged issue, there were few people who would come up and talk to me about it. So I had to dig deeper, and I had to promise them assurance. And I found what I was after was to find a human angle to this story, so that data and the statistics are not overwhelming. And I found that story in a little dam in the east of the country in Mashal, where a dam where there was a man, a local commander, who came up with a militia and decided to protect the dam. And the government promised him that if he could protect the dam for 2 months, then his militia would be registered as a force of the government, and that they would be paid salaries, and they would be provided vehicles and weapons and everything. But the guy only lasted into his mission for about 2 weeks. He was executed brutally in a battle with the Taliban. He was dragged, his sentence was taped with a lot of people around, and then he was put in front of an 82mm mortar, and he was blown up into pieces from a very close range. And I had government sources telling me that he was killed for 50,000 Pakistani rupees, which is about $500, very little money. So I used that story to show how water is a very politically charged issue. And the story took me to Herat, it took me to Helmand, but most of the work was focused in Kabul because it was around the policy issue of it. And as a result, I was happy with the final result. I was particularly happy to find the human angle to this story, because otherwise the statistics, the politics, the diplomacy would have been very overwhelming for my reader.